Hello, welcome to Bible study. Thank you for coming. I know you can't speak, but you can hear me. So I will get started. I hope you are having a good week so far in the middle of your week. I'm going to start in a prayer and then we will be going through Genesis. So the last Bible, I don't know, you haven't been here for the last couple of Bible studies. But we got all the way up to chapter 9 of Genesis, either 9 or 10. So I'm going to be doing like several chapters today because I want us to kind of like move quicker through the Bible study. So that's what I am going to do. Bear with me. Okay, so I'll start in prayer. Clear my thoughts. Yahuwah, thank you for everyone that is here today to hear your word. Thank you for allowing us to see another day here on earth, to be blessed with the opportunity to have your word at our fingertips. Your word is living, it breathes life, it gives direction, it teaches discernment. And I hope that I will be able to share your word properly with everyone that is here. I pray that we all receive the guidance that we need from the scriptures that we will read, that we will receive new enlightenment and new knowledge and gain new wisdom in the spirit, that we learn to walk in our spirit and not in our flesh, and that you give us the strength to take on the rest of the week, to take on the world, to face our lives, and to understand you from a better perspective. In Yahushua's name I pray. Amen. Okay, so I'm gonna read. I'm trying to remember where I left off because it was just me and Jaleese the last time we did it. Okay, so we read about the Tower of Babel, and what happened at the Tower of Babel. That's chapter 11 of Genesis. And then chapter 11 also works from after the flood. So after Noah, it was the Tower of Babel. And then from Noah, it goes down the line of all the sons of Noah leading up to Abraham. So from Noah to Abraham, I believe is 13, either 7 or 13 generations. I gotta get that number right. But it goes down that list and it lists how long each son lived. And yeah, so we ended with the story of the Tower of Babel, chapter 11. And I'm going to start with the promise to Abraham that Yahuwah made in chapter 12. So I'm just going to read from my study Bible, my handy dandy study Bible, because I love my study Bible. And I'll start. So this is Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. The Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So Abram went as the Lord told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh at Shechem. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called the name of the Lord. And then Abram set out and continued toward Negev. So that is chapters 12 to 9, sorry, verses 12 through 9 of chapter 12. And Yahuwah makes this promise to Abram that he's going to make a great nation of Abram and he's going to bless his seed. So he tells Abram to leave his homeland and to travel with all of his wife, his nephew, and all of his servants that he had traveled with him from the land of Haran to the land of Canaan. And then Abram ends up in Egypt. So that's what the next couple of verses are about. So this is chapter 12, verse 10. So now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. And he was about to enter Egypt, and he said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. When Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that Sarai was a very beautiful woman. And when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his palace. He treated Abram well for her sake, and Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Sarai. So Pharaoh summoned Abram. What have you done to me? He said, why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister? So I took her to be my wife. Now then, here's your wife. Take her and go. Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. So that's kind of self-explanatory. Abram traveled to Egypt, and when they got to Egypt, he knew that his wife Sarai was beautiful. So he told Sarai not to tell Pharaoh that they were husband and wife, because in those times Pharaoh would kill the man if he wanted a woman good enough, then he would kill the husband so that he could take her as a wife. So he told her to tell them that he was her brother instead. But because of the sin that brought on Pharaoh's palace, Yahuwah inflicted serious diseases and curses on Pharaoh, to where Pharaoh asked Abram, why did you lie about her being your sister? I would have taken her as my wife. So that is what that verse is about. That's the story of Abram and Sarai and Pharaoh. I like, in my study Bible, it has like little snippets about each verse. So I want to see what it says about these verses. Ooh, okay. So this is what it says about verse 11 through 13 of chapter 12, Genesis. Abram, acting out of fear, asked Sarai to tell a half-truth by saying she was his sister. She was his half-sister. Oh, I didn't know that. She was his half-sister, but she was also his wife, a practice that was considered acceptable at the time. It was only later forbidden by God. Abram's intent was to deceive the Egyptians. He feared that if they knew the truth, they would kill him to get Sarai. She would have been a desirable addition to Pharaoh's harem because of her wealth, beauty, and potential for political alliance. As Sarai's brother, Abram would have been given a place of honor. As her husband, however, his life would be in danger because Sarai could not enter Pharaoh's harem unless Abram was dead. So Abram lost faith in God's protection, even after all God had promised him, and told a half-truth. This is how lying compounds the effects of sin. When Abram lied, his problems multiplied. So I like how my study Bible gives like a different perspective, because when I'm just reading it, I'm reading it for what it is on the paper. And sometimes when you're just hopping into Bible study and you're just reading what it is on the Bible, you can't really take in the story, you can't take in the context. So I like to read the excerpts in the study Bible because it talks about like a different perspective of, okay, Abram didn't have faith in Yahuwah not to protect him in that situation. So instead of having faith in Yahuwah to protect him from Pharaoh, he told Sarai, to lie about him being her husband. And it says that it shows how lying compounds the effects of sin. That part I don't really get from this story because he lied, but the lie kind of helped him in a way because he lied about being her brother instead of her husband. Pharaoh blessed him with a whole bunch of things. Um, so that part I'm trying to like get from the story because he did tell them to leave Egypt. I guess the compounding effects would be them not being allowed to stay in Egypt. But that's what the study Bible says. But I like that different perspective. So that's chapter 12, story of how Abram traveled to Egypt and had this little just I don't know, had this with Pharaoh. And then so I'm gonna go to chapter 13. How much time? How much time do I have? Oh, I have a good amount of time. Oh, hopefully you're learning something. Chapter 13, Genesis chapter 13. So Abram went up from Egypt to Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold. From the Negev, he went from place to place until he came to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier, and where he had first built an altar. There Abram called on the name of the Lord. Now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents. But the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And quarreling arose between Abram's herders and Lot's. The Canaanites and the Perizzites were also living in the land at that time. So Abram said to Lot, let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. Lot looked around and saw that the whole plain of Jordan toward Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of Jordan and set out toward the east. Two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot had parted from him, look around from where you are to the north and the south, to the east and the west. All the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you. So Abram went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he pitched his tents, and there he built an altar to the Lord. So that is chapter 13 of Genesis. That speaks about how Abram left, what happened after Abram left Egypt with Sarai. So remember that Abram was traveling with his wife, his nephew, and all their servants. So Abram's nephew is Lot. Lot's servants and Abram's servants started quarreling because Lot had possessions as well as Abram had possessions from what he gained from Pharaoh. So they started quarreling about, who's gonna have the land because there wasn't enough space for all of the possessions that both of them had. So when they started quarreling, Abram said, we shouldn't quarrel because, we're close relatives. And Abram was like, basically, wave the white flag. If you go to this side of the land, I'll take this side. If you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left. So he allowed Lot to choose which side of the river he wanted to go on. And Lot chose an area that says the whole plain of Jordan towards Zoar, which was watered. So he chose a land that was to the east, and Abram went west. And after Lot parted ways from Abram, so Lot's no longer with Abram. After Lot parted ways with Abram, God spoke to Abram and told him, I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Let's see what the study Bible has to say about this, because it seems very straightforward to me. It's just like, okay, Abram, Lot, they split ways. They didn't have enough room for both of their possessions. God told Abram, I'm gonna make a great nation out of you. Your offspring is gonna be unnumerable. Anyway, let's see what they say. Hmm. Okay, so this is the Study Bible's interpretation of chapter 13. So, chapter 13, verses 1 and 2, it says, in Abram's day, sheep and cattle owners could acquire great wealth. Abram's wealth Abram's wealth included not only silver and gold, but also livestock. These animals were a valuable commodity used for food, clothing, tent material, and sacrifices. They were often traded for other goods and services. Abram was able to watch his wealth grow and multiply. Okay, so that's kind of just giving an idea of like the status of wealth at that time. So not just what we talk about today is not just money, livestock is wealth too. So he was very wealthy, basically. Um, about verses 5 through 9. Facing a potential conflict with his nephew Lot, Abram took the initiative in settling the dispute. He gave Lot first choice, even though Abram, being older, had the right to choose first. Abram also showed a willingness to risk being cheated. Abram's example shows us how to respond to difficult family situations. Take the initiative in resolving conflicts. Let others have the first choice, even if that means not getting what we want, and put family peace above personal desires. This is talking directly to me. That's why I'm getting excited because um yeah. So I like that take. I didn't necessarily I've been feeling very selfish lately, so that's why it's kind of like hitting me because it's like this is a point in time. I pretty much feel like it's spiritual warfare, but this is a point in time where I should definitely not be selfish, and I'm usually not like a selfish person. But I kept telling myself because I was so angry today, I kept telling myself, don't take it out on so and so. You just come peacefully, recognize that you're feeling the way that you're feeling. Like I'm feeling very much like I want to be left alone. I don't want to talk to anybody and I'm tired of interacting with people. So the fact that this was something that was talked about in this Bible today is crazy. Um, but yeah, I like that. Take initiative in resolving conflicts. Let others have the first choice, even if that means not getting what we want. Put family peace above personal desires. And it sounds easy, but it's not easy. It's like very hard because your personal desires, like, I just feel like human nature, we're naturally selfish. So I'm just like, my thought process is I kind of feel like every time I want something, I can't have it. Um, but I guess that is a part of growing in the faith and learning how to live by their spirit and not by the flesh is to deny your flesh. So that means to deny your personal desires. Okay, moving on. Um, keep going. Surrounded by blah, blah, blah. Abram and Lot have pulled together instead. Okay, let me read that. Okay. So about verses 7 through, I'm still on chapter 13 of Genesis. I'm just reading the excerpts that are in my study Bible. It says, surrounded by hostile neighbors, the herdsmen of Abram and Lot should have pulled together. Instead, they let petty jealousy tear them apart. Similar situations exist today. Christians often bicker while Satan is at work all around them. Rivalries, arguments, and disagreements among believers can be destructive in three ways. One, they damage goodwill, trust, and peace, the foundation of good human relations. Two, they hamper progress toward important goals. And three, they make us self-centered rather than love-centered. Jesus understood how destructive arguments among brothers and sisters could be. In his prayer on the night he was betrayed and arrested, Jesus asked God that his followers be one. Apply that how you want it. I know my personal take on it. Um, which is why it's kind of hard. It's hard for me to be in a Christian church because growing up, going to an African Methodist Episcopal in the country, like I felt that as a child, like something didn't feel right. And it was all the division. Like, why have so many denominations in one religion? So I understand what effect having divisiveness within the faith has from a personal standpoint. Um, so we all need to be one in unity, and it's all here. Ooh. Okay. My study Bible be reading these Bible characters. Okay, let's see. Let's see what it has to say about Lot. It says Lot's character. Okay, so Lot is Abram's nephew. Lot is the one who chose the good land to the east. Um, Lot's character is revealed by his choices. He took the best share of the land, even though it meant living near Sodom, a city known for its sin. He was greedy, wanting the best for himself without thinking about his uncle Abram's needs or what was fair. Life presents a series of choices. We too can selfishly choose the best for ourselves while ignoring the needs and feelings of others. But this kind of choice, as Lot's life shows, can lead to problems. When we stop choosing Yahuwah's best for our lives, we may not realize we are heading in the worst possible direction. Yeah. Okay. Mm. Take that how you want it. Okay, so it is 7:29. I got another 15. I think I got another 15 minutes. I can go on to chapter 4. We can knock out chapter 14 of Genesis. So, chapter 14. Let me get my reading voice together. Okay. At the time, hold on. Hold on. Let me see if this is the one that the story that I knew. It might be. Okay. Chapter 14, Genesis chapter 14, verse 1. At the time when, I don't know this name, Amraphel, okay, Amraphel was king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Eleazar, Kedolamar, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goyim. These kings went to war against Bera, king of Sodom, Birsha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shimber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela. Okay, so basically a whole bunch of kings went to war. All these latter kings joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is the Dead Sea Valley. For 12 years they had been subject to Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings aligned with him went out and defeated the Rephaites in Ashtaroth Karnaim. I'm going to have to take Hebrew so I can properly pronounce these names. The Zuzites in Ham, the Emites in Shavah, Kirathim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran near the desert. Then they turned back and went to En Pishat, that is Kadesh, and they conquered the whole territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites who were living in Hazazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah and the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, the king of Bela, marched out and drew up their battle lines in the valley of Siddim against Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar. 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits, and when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some of the men fell into them, and the rest fled to the hills. The 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food, then they went away. They also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. A man who had escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre, the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Anar, all of whom were allied with Abram. Tongue twister. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Habo, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods, brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with women and the other people. After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. Okay, so far chapter 14 is the king, these four kings against five kings, they're in war. The main focus is Sodom and Gomorrah. The king of Sodom, is it the king of Sodom? Let me double check. Somebody. Okay, yeah. So they pillaged Sodom and Gomorrah. Basically, they took all their food and all their possessions out of Sodom and Gomorrah. And Lot was living in Sodom. Remember, Lot is Abram's nephew. So they also carried off Lot and his possessions. Why it only says Lot, I don't know. Maybe because Lot was a rich man and he had a lot of possessions. And so Abram basically gathered all of his, he had 318 trained men. So that means Abram had a lot of people, had a lot of servants in his house because the Bible mainly focuses on the men, and the women or children are like additions. So it's 318 trained men, but imagine how many families that is. So he took all of his men from his household to attack those kings that had basically taken Lot captured. And he recovered Lot and got all his possessions and brought him back to where he was staying. And where am I? Okay, this is the rest of chapter 14. Ooh, I like his name. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, With raised hand I have sworn an oath to the Lord, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or a strap of a sandal, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. I will accept nothing but what men have eaten, and the share that belongs to the men who went with me, to Anar, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them have their share. Okay. Let's see what the study Bible says Melchizedek. Melchizedek. Hmm. Melchizedek, king of Salem. Okay, so remember the name Melchizedek, king of Salem? He was brought, blah, blah, blah. All right. Study Bible says, what does Study Bible say? Hmm. Okay. So it says Lot's greedy desire for the best everything. Okay. So Lot's greedy desire for the best of everything led him into sinful surroundings. His burning desire for possession and success cost him his freedom and enjoyment. As a captive to Chedorlaomer, he faced torture, slavery, and death. In much the same way we can be enticed into doing things or going places we shouldn't. The prosperity we long for is captivating. It can both entice us and enslave us if our motives are not in line with God's desires. Study Bible says Lot was greedy. He allowed his greed to place him in an environment that allowed him to be taken captive. And once he was taken captive, he was subject to torture, slavery, and even death. So it's basically akin the effects of Lot's greed to like present day, where we're so hungry for success or for like prosperity or whatever it is that we're chasing. Our eyes are like fixed on this one thing, not seeing that we're in an environment or we're in a situation or somewhere where Yahuwah doesn't want us to be. So what I'm taking from it is that we should always have our hearts and our eyes fixed on Yahuwah. I have 10 more minutes. Oh, okay, I have 10 more minutes. What is going on? Get off my screen. Here we go. Next. This incident, say blah, say blah, say blah. Okay. When Abram learned that Lot was a prisoner, he harbored no grudge and immediately tried to rescue him. It would have been easier and safer not to become involved, but with his nephew in serious trouble, Abram acted at once. Sometimes we must get involved in messy or painful situations in order to help others. We should be willing to act immediately when others need our help. Okay. On to Melchizedek. Okay, so I don't know if you remember, but I read chapter 14, verse 18. It talks about Melchizedek, the king of Salem. So the king of Salem brought out bread and wine to Abram. And he blessed Abram, and he said, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." So basically, Melchizedek came out to meet at Abram to congratulate him for defeating the kings and rescuing Lot from captivity. So who is Melchizedek? He was obviously a God-fearing man, a priest of God Most High, who recognized God as the creator of heaven and earth. His name means king of righteousness. Righteousness. Melchizedek means king of righteousness. The king of Salem, which means king of peace. While some have suggested that Melchizedek was an appearance on earth of the pre-incarnated Christ in a temporary bodily form, a more likely possibility is that Melchizedek was a type of Christ, a type of biblical person, event, or symbol that points to something or someone that comes later in Scripture. Types often point to Christ, illustrating lessons about him by their similarities to who he is or what he did. Now that is throwing me off because I forget what verse it is, but somewhere in the Bible it does say, "Do not add or remove from the word." So when I read chapter 14, all it says that is that Melchizedek is the king of Salem, and he brought out bread and wine to bless Abram and congratulate him, basically. But there's speculation according to Study Bible. I don't know who wrote these little side notes in this Study Bible, but there is speculation that Melchizedek was an appearance on earth of the pre-incarnate Christ. So where do we get that in the Bible? Where do we get that in that scripture? I'm just trying to understand where the scripture says Melchizedek is the pre-incarnate Christ. Anyway, I think sometimes we read a little bit too much into what the Bible is saying. We should take the Bible for the words. But let's see. So sometimes they have like little excerpts about people in the Bible. Do you like a good mystery? One of the most mysterious people in the Bible is the king of Salem, Melchizedek. He appeared one day in the life of Abram and was never heard from again. What happened that day, however, was to be remembered throughout history and eventually become a subject of the New Testament letter of the Hebrews. I am currently reading Hebrews, so maybe I will have to wait until I get to Hebrews to understand this. This meeting between Abram and Melchizedek was most unusual. Although two men were strangers and foreigners to each other, they shared a most important characteristic. Both worshiped and served the one true God who made heaven and earth. This was a great moment of triumph for Abram. He had just defeated an army and regained the freedom of his nephew Lot and many other captives. If there was any doubt in Abram's mind about whose victory it was, Melchizedek set the record straight by reminding him, "And praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." Abram recognized that this man worshiped the same God he did. Melchizedek was one of the small group of God honoring people throughout the Old Testament who came in contact with the Israelites, but were not Israelites themselves. This indicates that the requirement to be a follower of God is not genetic, but is based on recognizing his greatness and faithfully obeying his teachings. Do you let Yahuwah speak to you through other people? In evaluating others, do you consider Yahuwah's impact on their lives? Are you aware of the similarities between you and others who worship, even if their form of worship is quite different than yours? Do you know the Yahuwah of the Bible well enough to know you truly worship him? Allow Melchizedek, Abraham, David, and Jesus, along with many other persons in the Bible, to show you this great Yahuwah, creator of heaven and earth. He wants you to know how much he loves you. He wants you to know him personally. Personal thoughts here, also very personal to me, because I use the name Yahuwah because Yahuwah is the Hebrew, wherever there, from what I've learned, wherever there is God in the Bible, because our Bibles is translated to English from Hebrew and has been translated several times. The original term was Yahuwah. Yahuwah is our God. That is his name. He has a name. So that's why I use his actual Hebrew name. But I do understand when it's talking about how Abram was able, because Melchizedek was not a Hebrew, he was not an Israelite, but he was able to understand that Melchizedek worshiped the same God. Because I was kind of led to, I know I was asked like years ago about like, so I did a short film. It was a faith-based short film. Then while we were praying, one of the guys was like, I didn't pray with you guys because I didn't know which God you were praying to. And I'm like 22 at this time. So I'm just like, what do you mean, which God? There's only one God. So for me, calling him Yahuwah allows me to differentiate between which God, because there's big G and there's little g. And I rather just, this is who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the God of the Bible, the one true God. Um, And what else does it say? I had thoughts. I be having thoughts when I'm reading this. Hmm. Is their form of worship is quite different from yours? I don't know. That's kind of like what I'm going through right now and trying to. I'm not a Christian. I don't tell people I'm Christian because I don't necessarily believe they follow biblical terms. I just say I'm a believer of the Bible. So being able to congregate with other believers is kind of where I'm at in trying to understand things. But since I only have 2 minutes left, we made it through Genesis. We read chapter 12, 13, and 14. So, quick recap. Not Abraham. He's not Abraham yet. He's Abram. Okay, I'm skipping ahead. Abram, Sarai, God told Abram to leave his homeland. They traveled to Egypt. Abram gained all these possessions in Egypt from lying to Pharaoh about being Sarai's brother. Pharaoh found out because he was cursed, so Pharaoh kicked them out of Egypt. Then Lot and Abram go separate ways, but Lot ends up getting taken captive by the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah because he's in a bad situation. So Abram has to gather all of his servants to fight those kings and recover Lot and all of his servants. So Abram defeated all of those wicked kings and got his nephew back. And right now, we ended chapter 14 with learning about Melchizedek, the king of Salem. Why in the world Melchizedek is an important figure, I do not know, because this says that he's only mentioned here one time, and then he's mentioned again in Hebrews. So I'm going to have to, when I get to Hebrews, I'm going to have to do my research on why Melchizedek is an important person. But I am happy that you were able to come to today's Bible study. My Zoom meeting is going to end soon. So thank you. I pray and I hope that you have a lovely rest of your week. And hopefully I wasn't all over the place and I'll get more concise. Bye.